This industry just owns us. And, let's turn America into the factory farm for the world. Welcome to Rising Anxieties. This is where we get together every week to talk about what's worrying the animal ag industry. Everybody has their interests, that happens to be ours. And of course, it also involves what's worrying me. And probably what's worrying you, because who wouldn't be worried? All right, we have two articles from Ag Daily, which really makes me think that sometimes I think they don't worry about us at all. And other times I think they really are panicked. All right, the first one is by Farm Babe. That is Michelle Miller, who I just laugh every time I say it. She calls herself Farm Babe. She writes a column for Ag Daily. Anyway, no, veganism isn't the only way to eat sustainably. Obviously, she thinks that a lot of people think that it is, which, it is. But, all right. So she points out that if you Google sustainable diets, you will frequently be told, at the very least, you need to drastically reduce your intake of animal products. I'm so happy to hear that. Sometimes I think it's just in my little bubble, but apparently a lot of people are getting that info. The United Nations itself recommends moving toward a plant-based diet to support sustainability. This must be driving them nuts. But you knew there was but coming, didn't you? There's a lot more to sustainability than it might seem. Actually, no, Michelle, there isn't. It's exactly what it seems. If your goal is to support sustainability, you can absolutely do that. If your goal isn't, who cares? Like the planet, we'll find another one. You can absolutely do that and still eat meat and other animal products. Well, no, but and then she goes, they go through all the numbers and who knows, I'm not going to compete with the numbers. Like they have their numbers, we have our numbers. She says that livestock specifically accounted for 4.3% of all GHG global uh, greenhouse gas emissions. Well, this seems like a substantial amount. Yeah, it does. When compared to the 28% of emissions caused by transportation, it doesn't seem like so much. So maybe we should get rid of transportation instead. And of course, these numbers are all like, it depends on what you count. It doesn't seem to me that switching to plant-based diets truly would help emissions very much. That's their best argument. All right, so research published in the Journal of Animal Science, well, I'm sure that's a reliable source, shows that eliminating all livestock from the agriculture industry would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by only 2.6% to 2.9% in the United States. Okay, well, let's do it because there's plenty of other reasons to do it. And even if that's all it is, that's something. But as I said, the numbers, everybody's got different numbers. I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna parse through that because I don't have the patience. All right, the elimination of livestock in agriculture would also have some negative nutritional impacts. Oh, I thought we were talking about sustainability. But no, we're talking about nutrition. And that's even that this I'm on firmer ground with this with the numbers. I mean, this is just total bullshit. All right, check this out. It could lead to an overall lack of vitamin B12. That's my favorite article since they add vitamin B12 to the animal feed, and that's why they get it. So you might as well just take a supplement instead of getting it from the animal. Long chain omega-3. The omega-3 is an issue. It's not irreplaceable, but it's an issue. We should be better about it. But get this, and omega-6 fatty acids in the US population. If there's one thing we get enough of, it's omega-6 fatty acids. And if you're not obsessed with nutrition, like just take my word for it. That's nonsense. We have so far too much omega-6 fatty. Yeah, all right. I'll shut up. All right. She also talks about complete protein sources. We've known for a while, like I think 50 years, that that's bullshit. Um, and then it's even been found that plant-based meat alternatives have a higher or similar carbon footprint to well-maintained pasture-raised beef. It has been found. Like maybe you want to tell us where that's been found because that's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous statement. And of all things, pasture-raised beef, which has, the highest carbon footprint. Unbelievable. Getting back to the environmental side of this, yeah, I think that's what we should, since that's what the article is about. Livestock provide a lot of environmental benefits. I bet you're surprised to hear that. And her point is that This is one of my favorites. I actually wrote an article, a letter to the editor. I can't remember to what editor about this. Like, it was the first thing I ever did in animal activism. Um, the grazing uses about 29% of all U.S. land. She does admit that, but that's grassland, pasture, and rangeland. And the land used for grazing often is you couldn't use it for crops. So because it's and that's probably true. It's not arable land. It's too rocky, arid, or steep, she says. And since it can't be used for other food production, quote, livestock are using land that would otherwise have no purpose. Apparently, the only possible use for any land in the world is to feed humans. That's it. No other purpose. Believable. She points out that livestock are also upcyclers, by which means they eat a lot of garbage. And this isn't totally false, I don't think. They do eat a lot of garbage. And they are byproducts, brewer's grains, cottonseed, pea pulp, beet tops. Well, why wouldn't people eat beet? She's talking about things that people wouldn't eat, but they could eat beet tops, grass clippings, and potato peelings. They could also eat potato peeling. Well, I'm getting distracted. In fact, 40% of animal feed ingredients are byproducts. I mean, there probably is some truth in that. There is probably, I don't know whether we could use all these things for other purposes. We probably could, because we always come up with a way to use everything for everything. But on the other hand, it's good to keep in the back of your mind that most of what farm animals eat is garbage, or not most, but 40% of what animals eat is garbage, because I think people find that distasteful. There are by garbage, I mean, these leftover stuff that you throw in the garbage after you've made the food. There are other benefits that livestock can provide. Improving biodiversity, that's a good one. Providing wildlife habitat. Yes, cows are well known for building wildlife habitat. Oh my God. But now we're getting into this is their new favorite, enhancing carbon sequestration, contributing to nutrient cycling when grazing. All right, that's I don't even know what that means. But manure and waste from livestock. This is the real thing I meant that they love to talk about. Their new thing. Manure and waste from livestock also has a usage. Talks about capturing methane in methane digesters and turning it into fuel. And that's California's fault. They provide the market for the whole country, and it's a disaster. As you know, because I talk about it all the time. And the other good thing is that they're always reducing their impact on the environment, which I guess is better than increasing. I don't know. She suggests that if people are going to switch to plant-based diets, they should do it in other countries. What? Because their animal agriculture isn't as efficient there as it is here. Wow. That's a good one. Yeah. Let's have people in Africa do it, because we don't want to do it. And we're so much better than they are in every way. All right, that's only one article from Ag Daily showing that they are panicked about at least environmental activism. And here's another article. This is by one Brandy Buzzard. Interesting name. The high costs of, quote, feel-good farming. And she's talking about, what is she? She's like a rancher, I think. Yeah, a rancher speaker. She can speak, and pioneer for modern and sustainable agriculture. Oh my God. All right, it's Prop 12. They're still obsessed with Prop 12. And I'm not going to go through all this, because you've heard it all before. And how terrible how terrible Prop 12, and how she finds it unconscionable that one state can dictate the farming practices of the other 49, which is absolutely not what's happening. One state can dictate what's being sold in their own state. That's how it really is. And that is true. And the Supreme Court has held that. Oh, and they're still trying to get Prop 12 passed. They've failed, in their Supreme Court challenge, and they failed in the Congress. But now they're trying to get the Save Our Bacon Act and the Food Security and Farm Protection Act into the Farm Bill, which, maybe someday Congress will pass a Farm Bill. Doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like they'll ever do anything, does it? And according to the national, this is my favorite part. This is the part I really wanted to tell you about. According to the National Pork Producers Council, a reliable source, I'm sure, constructing Prop 12 compliant facilities costs roughly $4,000 per sow. The average United States sow farm has around 3,000 sows. You do the math. Just kidding. I'll do it for you. That's a cool 12 million on average to construct a Prop 12 compliant facility. All right. I mean, $12 million, drop in the bucket for these people, but I was surprised it was that much. And then she stuck in something because she was forced to, apparently. That made me think, oh, yeah, all right, I was reading that wrong. So my pork industry leader husband and said, even her pork industry leader husband said, I don't think you can say that, Brandy, said I should clarify that a retrofit of a stall housing barn to a pen housing barn instead of a new build would be less than $4,000 per sow, but those costs vary widely. And so I totally missed that. I was thinking that she was talking about turning, a cage facility into one that gives the sows a little bit more room, which is what we're talking about doing in order to be Prop 12 compliant. And no, she was talking about building in a whole new facility. Of course, that's going to cost $12 million. And then she doesn't know how much it costs to retrofit one. Unbelievable. These people are unbelievable. What we do know, she says, is there are far too many people who have never had to manage land or livestock, especially under unpredictable policies and weather. These poor farmers, these poor, poor farmers, and they do it for us. And they still have a lot of influence over the livelihoods of those of us who do. They just don't want any laws at all. They don't want any laws at all. All right, this is from Investigate Midwest, which is an interesting site. It's not an animal protection site at all, but it's a progressive site keeping an eye on animal agriculture. And this article is by Juan Vassallo, and not just animal agriculture. I think just like a progressive view, except on animal rights issues, but even on animal protection issues. You know what I mean. Oklahoma's ban on Chinese-owned farmland made an exception for Smithfield Foods. I just thought this was really interesting. So Oklahoma, MAGA state, like really wanting to protect American industry, so they want to get all foreign. They want their farmland not owned by foreigners. They want it owned by Americans. And China is, the one they're really scared about. And so they passed measures limiting foreign ownership of farmland. And the main concern was about Chinese nationals and companies buying agricultural land in the state. And it's mostly anti-China rhetoric that has driven legislation. And I don't think this is just racism. Obviously, China is in competition for leadership in the world, and let's just assume that there are reasonable reasons for this. So there is only one Chinese-owned company with farmland in Oklahoma, and that is Smithfield, that owns, of course, is now owned by a Chinese conglomerate, and that's the only place that's owned by the Chinese. They exempted it because it's a pork facility, I guess, and they wouldn't want to get rid of that. The article goes on in quite some detail, but I won't bore you with it all. But pork. We don't want to lose pork. And I don't know what the motivations are here, but it's just such bullshit. We're all worried about China. Let's pass this law and let's exempt the only Chinese company that happens to raise pigs. This industry just owns us. And, so let's turn America, which it already is, but could become even more so, into the factory farm for the world. If people in China want pork, why can't they raise their pigs in China? No, they have to use America. Now, I sound pretty MAGA myself, don't I? But all right, just a little something more about what the industry is worried about. Remember avian flu in the cows, and then it was gone? Well, it's back. First case of avian flu detected in Wisconsin dairy herd. It's not only back, but it's in Wisconsin, where it's actually never been in dairy before. It's been in chickens before in Wisconsin, but never been, as far as we know, it's never been in dairy herds. And so they found it by this testing, the national milk testing strategy that they do. and it's already been detected in some poultry flocks as well. So it's not surprising. But I just thought I'd let you know that it's definitely around again. They do seem to think it has something to do with it being winter. I don't know whether this is really seasonal, but what do I know? All right. Also from Dairy Herd, I'm not going to read this whole article, but I'm just going to remind you of 5 livestock diseases that could impact U.S. food security and economic stability, and also the lives and deaths and suffering of millions of animals. But who's counting? And in case you've forgotten, you probably have heard of most of these, but they're all still around. They're all still something to worry about. We should get rid of this industry because it's going to kill us all. Foot and mouth disease, African swine fever, New World screwworm, which is not in the US yet, but they're really panicked. Highly pathogenic avian influenza, that's bird flu, which, cows get it. So I don't know why we could still call it bird flu. And porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome. So something to keep an eye on, which I'm sure we'll be hearing more about. And in relation to that article, I just took this article out of What Poultry. Why is vaccinating against avian flu still such an issue? It is interesting, isn't it? Because avian flu is this huge problem, and you can vaccinate the birds against it. Does seem like a big job, but and this is by Benjamin Ruiz. He is writing the Latin America poultry at a glance, and this is really comparing the United States and probably other countries as well, um, as compared to Mexico, which does vaccinate its poultry. Despite the experience of other countries, as well as with other diseases, reluctance and controversy remain. And and he says that winter is here in the northern hemisphere, and avian flu is lying in wait. So maybe he thinks it is a seasonal disease. I don't really know. And he's talking about advisors to the Dutch government have issued a very strong warning that the current strategy for dealing with avian influenza is outdated, and the situation in the country is serious, and that the traditional method of simply culling, which is their word for killing, infected flocks is no longer sufficient, particularly because the disease has become endemic in wildlife. So we do have a solution or a way of managing bird flu right now, as you know, is to kill all the birds and then breed them again, and kill them in horrible, horrible ways. But apparently, even doing something that horrible is not good enough. Reactive culling has become a futile measure. For these Dutch experts, the only viable long-term solution is preventive vaccination. And then he goes through the experience in Mexico, where they've been vaccinating poultry against avian flu for 30 years. They've had a lot of success, and it's mostly for egg producers, because the broilers, which is what they call the poor little chickens who people want to eat, have such short lifespans. But the reason that it isn't a problem is because of international trade. And I guess it's not just the US, but they can't export their product. And he doesn't understand why some countries don't want to do this. Now, I don't know anything about the science, obviously. You know me. But I mean, I can understand why, at least in the US, it's a problem, because vaccination, I mean, people who are anti-vax wouldn't want to buy the chicken and the eggs. This might be the one thing that could cause people to not want to buy the dead birds and the eggs. I think it's a huge problem for them. All right, finally, this is a horrible little article, so I'm just going to leave you with something really depressing. This is from Horde's Dairyman. Your surplus calves have value. It's just it's just so sordid. These people are so sordid. And they're talking about surplus calves. And these are calves born to dairy cows who are either male, and of no use to the dairy producers, or apparently there are also a lot of females, which of course they call heifers, entering this. I guess they produce more babies than that are needed, and they're taken away from their mothers, who grieve, of course. And but that's not what this article is talking about at all. They're just talking about what we can do with them and how we can make money off of them. And there are only 4 major companies that produce veal in the U.S. There should be none. Why is veal still in existence? But they also raise them for beef. They just grow them longer so that they're bigger, and then they sell, and then they kill them for beef. They didn't used to do that, but it's become a thing. And surplus calves, that's what they call them, surplus calves, are the calves you don't want to keep in your herd to maintain your lactating herd. It can be bulls, but we're seeing more and more heifers enter the stream. Not only do surplus calves need to leave the farm, they don't actually need to do that. You want them to leave the farm, but they don't need to. So it's an interesting way to put that. But as a dairy farmer, you want them to leave quickly. I bet you do, because raising extra animals can be costly and may put a strain on your operation. God forbid that would happen. And so, of course, these animals are very delicate. And apparently, the dairy farmers of Canada issued new policies for this, for tighter regulation on when and how calves may be transported and within what time frame they may be in transit. And these new policies, this article says, were put in place in the interest of increasing calf comfort. But participants in Locke's study shared that they hesitate to welcome such changes in the U.S. out of concerns for increased costs and labor, which, like really, really are a lot more important than calf comfort. These are newborn animals. Dairy farmers and dairy beef producers already want to do right by the animals. Well, there's not a whole lot of evidence of that. I'm sorry. The key is making the right connections and finding solutions. Yeah, ones that don't cost any money. All right, as I said, I'm leaving you with that depressing comment on human nature, or whatever this is we're talking about here. And all right, so you can hear our next interview, which will come out this Friday, is with Melanie Kaplan, author of Lab Dog. We just spoke with her. She's terrific, and this is a really well done book that has loads and loads of information of what's happening, particularly to dogs in research, and built around her story of adopting a beagle who had been in research. Thanks for joining me today on Rising Anxieties. I'm really thrilled that you were here. Don't forget to tune into the Hen Report and the Our Hen House interview. And don't forget to subscribe. Please subscribe, either on your favorite podcatcher or on YouTube or somewhere else or everywhere. And we're in our end of year fundraising effort, and it's really, really important to us to get some money in the bank, because it basically lasts us through the rest of the year. So we have this great match going on. It's a double match. As long as we raise $20,000 from listeners, we will get $60,000. Like, unbelievable, right? So if you are able to, please donate whatever you can, or become a flock member at ourhenhouse.org/support. And thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to like the episode as well, or leave a comment on YouTube or Apple Podcasts. That also really helps us out. Bye.